so much for joining us here today on Dealing with the Issues. We are in our teen and young adults corner because issues are just as important to them. Let us not undervalue our teens and 20-somethings because they will too one day inherit the earth. In dealing with the issues, we like to hear the opinions of everyone. So today, what we are going to talk about is we're going to talk about minimum wage. Our teens and 20-somethings have quite a bit to say about the minimum wage and whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing to increase it. I would like to introduce you to Shane and Jamad, who will be speaking about minimum wage today. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Dealing with the Issues. And what I'd like to ask is, how do you guys feel about increasing the minimum wage?
Well, I personally feel that increasing the minimum wage it's bad on many levels. It's bad because it takes away from things and funds that these corporations need to keep their corporations steady moving. And not only that, I've heard many speculations that corporations such as McDonald's and Burger King and other, fast food businesses have decided that they would rather use machinery and robots instead of workers. That way they don't have to pay as much, and there is no minimum wage once machinery comes into their establishments.
Wow. Jamad, do you agree or disagree with that?
I don't think it should be raised.
Okay.
Kind of piggybacking off of what he said. I feel like in the long run it's gonna badly affect the economy, and so for right now, it does seem like it would help out, but with the increase in minimum wage, people will be losing jobs. Somewhere over 100,000 people will be out of jobs because of the increase of minimum wage.
Okay.
And so I feel like in the long run, it's better to stay where it is, and instead of increasing the minimum wage, we should better take care of healthcare. So I feel like if healthcare is increasing, other things are put in place to help those who really focus on minimum wage. I feel like they will be better equipped. I feel like I'm not really the word I'm trying to use, but basically I feel like healthcare and other things should be put in place instead of the increase in minimum wage.
Okay.
And so also I feel like by increasing minimum wage, a lot of people with better education and who are older would depend on minimum wage as a way of just living and not really a way of working up and trying to get a minimum wage job. I mean a middle class job, and trying to stay there and everything. So
Okay.
I feel like the minimum wage should be solely for the purpose of, not solely for the purpose of, but for the purpose of teens, and for them to get that foundation in the workplace. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's just my little input.
Okay. What advice do either of you have to give those people who are out there right now fighting for an increase in minimum wage because the prices of things are going up due to inflation?
To be honest, I feel like he said, minimum wage isn't something that you should depend on, and I feel like in this day and age in society, so many people depend on minimum wage, and it's like, they just want it for a convenience to them that they don't deserve, where harder working people such as doctors and lawyers and other people with more major professions, they deserve a more increase in pay than someone who just flips burgers or does janitorial services.
Okay, so I'm playing devil's advocate here. If they were to increase the minimum wage, do you think that the person who has a college degree or has a career in a profession, those wages should increase as well?
No, I don't agree with that.
Okay, because what I'm trying to actually say to you is that, say they make minimum wage $15 an hour, and it took someone 3 or 4 years to work to $15 an hour. If they were to increase minimum wage to $15 an hour, should that person get an increase in their wages who have worked 4 or 5 years to get to $15 an hour to maybe 20?
That's another thing with minimum wage and why it shouldn't be increased, because increasing minimum wage, you can't just increase minimum wage. You also have to increase, the wages above that, because it's not fair that, the minimum wage also is getting paid the same as those who maybe have more equipped jobs, something that takes a little bit more work to do. As he said, it was like with McDonald's, so someone, it shouldn't be equal,
Right.
And I feel like that's why healthcare and other things like that should be increased instead. Because with healthcare, you don't have to increase, the middle classes pay either. You know what I mean? With healthcare, everyone's getting helped out, especially. And for the advice for those who are fighting for that, I understand there's multiple reasons. You have family and stuff like that, but I feel like there's many things out there that help people get the education. Whether it's a high school diploma or college or something like that, I feel like there's a lot of things out there to help people further their education so they can go into the workforce.
Right. Okay. Now, one of the things I'd like to ask you guys is that you have these people out here fighting for the increase in minimum wage based on the reality that they're saying they work really, really hard. What do you say about the person that is working that maybe has to flip burgers, take out the trash, mop the floors, and then you might have a manager or someone else on the other end that they perceive does less work? Why does it seem that on the bottom level they work harder, and as we go upwards in promoting, it seems like the person is just sitting there rather than working?
I believe it's because they work their way to the top. They put all their labor and their efforts and their work ethics when they start out. And the whole basis and foundation of a job is working your way to the top so you don't have to work anymore.
Of course, we're all going to work towards retirement, and that's a great thing. So what do you say for the laborer and the worker that is smarter? Because then you have people who can think in more complex terms and be able to take care of the process or operations of running a staff, which is probably your manager, and then you have your staff member who is putting in all the hard work at the bottom level. Is it really still considered a bottom level? What I want to say is labor versus intelligence.
I feel like minimum wage isn't really able to sustain, a stable kind of, not worrying about the bills, having a stable way of paying rent. I feel like minimum wage in America is not really for that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that is something that, maybe we should work on. But for right now, until we are able to do that, I feel like those who are putting in labor, like you said, and with management and stuff, I feel like that work that you're putting in, basically, it's kind of like the old saying, 5 steps forward, 2 steps back. Like, you're putting in a lot of work to make something that's not meant to, do what it's doing to make it do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I feel like for those who are, having those problems and having working hard and stuff like that, I feel like they should, like I said, look towards, getting a better job. And if that's not available, then.
So what you're telling me, Jamad, is that by not increasing minimum wage, it will motivate and inspire workers to want to reach for something higher that they would actually work for rather than it being given.
Yes.
How do you feel about that, Shane?
I feel the same. I strongly agree. You have to remember that these people that apply for these minimum wage jobs, they chose to work there. everybody has a choice. They could have chose for a higher, job or a higher position. They did that to themselves. So they're basically.
You can finish.
But they're basically applying for these jobs, and they don't like the cut that's being given to them, so they want to complain about it, and they just want something given to them, but they forget that they chose to be there to begin with.
I would disagree with you on that, because I know a lot of times people in minimum wage don't have a choice. Either is that's location, or if that's just their, where their situation is. There was a film I watched at school in sociology. It was a documentary basically about 3 different lives and their story about minimum wage. And on one hand, it was a woman who was taking care of her daughter and her kids, and then because her daughter wasn't able, basically she was on disability, and so she didn't choose to be in that situation. She probably did choose to take her daughter and her children under her, but I feel like minimum wage was really the only choice for her. And so for some there is no choice other than minimum wage. But that's why I say, an education or just still striving to reach upper management or upper levels, it would be something I would advise them to do,
Okay, so with people not being able to make enough money, what opinion do you have regarding those people on minimum wage who are not making enough money and say are now asking for public assistance like welfare because they can't pay their bills or be able to feed their families?
Another thing, I feel like that's another short-term fix it. That's another short-term solution. Like there's gonna be other problems that root from that. I feel like instead of, there should be government assistance and stuff, which is gonna come from taxes. Government assistance, and that's something else that can be done is healthcare, like I said, or, programs put into place to help families and grow and stuff. So they're not only depending on that. Like parents are not only depending on that to sustain until like their children grow up and stuff like that. There should be other things put in place, or other things to help those who are that are really not government assistant, more like just programs and foundations and stuff like that.
Okay, so are what you're saying here is that maybe our society should lean a little more towards education focus, maybe possibly adopting some of the same views as other countries when it comes to the importance of education, and maybe decreasing the cost of education, therefore allowing people or everyone equal opportunity to be able to better themselves, to make a better living, rather than saying, okay, well, if you can't afford to go to school, then you're stuck here making minimum wage, and we're not going to help you any further from here.
I do agree with that, and at the same time, though, I kind of see how that could be a problem also, because by making education more easily access, that's great. To make education more easy to access for everyone, that's great. But at the same time, there's always going to be a minimum wage.
Right.
There's always going to be a minimum wage. So really, by just making education more accessible, which that is great, and I do agree with, that's in the long term, that's really just going to make the minimum wage more educated. The people working that more educated.
Or do you think that might be the solution, rather than as it being a long-term solution, being able to trust the choices of society, where some people may not feel they're cut out for an education, so they may not take advantage of it, because we do live in a world where we all make choices, and not everybody is a leader, not everybody is a follower, not everybody wants to be extroverted and out there, not everybody wants to be introverted and inside of themselves. So do you think that it would be a risk to trust society in saying that, okay, let's go ahead and give you a lower cost education as a long-term solution to these problems, and those who choose not to take advantage of it may still be just as many as those who don't choose
Yeah.
that as the same issues of today, because what I'm saying is that if you have to not work so hard to get the education, would you still take advantage of it?
That's a tricky question. Me personally, how I could relate to that is, growing up, I never really thought that just not completing high school was an option. You know, I feel like working towards it really made me have that hunger to be successful. So I feel like if you don't really work towards it and then you get it, it might not be as fulfilling as you may have thought.
Okay.
So a lot of times you hear about people who've got certain degrees and stuff. They got these degrees, but they're not using this. They're not using these degrees.
Right.
So it's not really fulfilling. So why would I go back to school to get another degree that I might or might not use? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I feel like by making it more easy to get, basically by making that education more accessible,
Mhm.
I feel like that's great because we have more educated people in America, but in the long term, not that many people may decide to continue getting that education if it's such an easy thing to get.
Okay. Okay. How do you feel about it, Shane?
I feel that if it was easier to get an education and to have some sort of stability, I feel like more people would reach out and take advantage of, you know, those, what I want to say. I feel like they would want to take advantage of it to benefit themselves, to make an impact on themselves.
In closing, what do you have to say to everyone out there who is for an increase in minimum wage in those states who actually have already done it?
Of course, I'm not gonna, just totally disagree. That's great that people out there fighting for what they think should happen, and I don't agree. I don't disagree with that. I feel like, I feel like minimum wage increasing. I feel like that could be good. I can understand in the circumstances that people are in right now that should be something that is what to fight for right now. And I know some places that short-term solutions, and I feel like those short-term solutions, I feel like in the long run is going to be another walkout. There's going to be another sit-in, another march basically asking for more minimum wage. So that's why I'm thinking that other things should be in place. There should be other things so that long term, like for the next generation, the generation after that there isn't these, problems, that there isn't, minimum wage is able for people to live off of.
I feel the only reason minimum wage should ever incline is if, supermarkets and prices start getting raised and it becomes harder and more of a struggle to pay for common household supplies. I feel like that's the only way it would be necessary, because then with the amount of funds that they're being given on a daily basis, it's not enough to cover, toilet paper or enough food for families. I feel like that's the only reason minimum wage should be increased. As prices in society increase, minimum wage should then increase. I feel like that's more suitable, but just to give people a raise while there's other people who are putting more hard work and labor, it just doesn't seem right.
I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Again, this is Jamad and Shane, and this is our teens and 20-somethings. And yes, they do have opinions that should be valued, and they should be listened to and heard, and always will be here on Dealing with the Issues. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
This has been a Dealing with the Issues production. Thank you so much for watching.